Hi there, this is Ally, and in this video I'm going to talk about different things that Yoga Nidra can help with. And this is a resource both for the trainees inside of my yoga teacher training, my Yoga Nidra teacher training, and as well as those of you on my channel. And this is a little bit different than the videos that I normally make, which are usually heavily based on different studies and what is the latest scientific research saying and those type of things. I thought it would be interesting to do a video more based on the feedback that I've been getting over the years, but more specifically, feedback from those of you who are using the recordings on my channel. So I thought it would be beneficial to go through a list of different things that people have contacted me about and let me know, hey, these Yoga Nidras are really helping me with X, Y, and Z. And I think it would be cool that if you're one of these people that Yoga Nidra has been helping your life in some way, whether it be with something to do with your health or mental health or anything at all, then please let us know. Comment below and let us know, because I love hearing some of these stories, and I also love connecting with you guys and hearing how Yoga Nidra is, for some of you, changing your lives. So one of the things I wanted to bring up that has been the most common thing over the past couple of years is long COVID. So I get, for almost 2 years now, I would say I got my first message about this maybe in the summer of 2020, and currently it's April of 2022. So long COVID is something that I get messages from people almost daily, if not several times a week, saying that, you know, this is one of the only things that's really helping me to get through some of these symptoms that I'm dealing with in this process of dealing with long COVID. So for those of you who don't know much about long COVID, it can be extremely debilitating, and it can really change the way people feel in terms of their energy, their mood, and it can have all sorts of negative repercussions and neurological symptoms that last for many months, and many people are dealing with this now going on a couple of years. So long COVID, I hear from people regularly. So if you know anyone that is suffering from long COVID and they haven't heard of Yoga Nidra yet, you might suggest it to them, because I hear about that more than anything right now. Hearing from people that are just finding so much help with their symptoms and their energy levels in dealing with and moving through long COVID. Another one that is very common is people with neurological disorders, and that's one of the big ones with long COVID. So different things like fibromyalgia and different things like that. So if you're one of those people that has been dealing with a chronic issue with any type of neurological condition, you might let me know about that below, because that is another one that is seeming to be one of the things that Yoga Nidra is really helping people around managing different things like pain and different neurological issues that come up with some of these different disorders. Another one that I hear from people regularly about is concussions and TBIs. Sorry about that. TBIs are not a laughing matter. I almost said TMI, like too much information. So TBIs, traumatic brain injuries. So a lot of people have really challenging ongoing symptoms from, and actually my sister dealt with meningitis, which is similar to a traumatic brain injury in the way that it presents in terms of the symptoms. And she also used Yoga Nidra regularly, and it was really helpful for her. But things like, yes, concussion recovery and traumatic brain injury recovery, I hear from people very regularly that this can be really helpful for them. And so that's something to consider. As well as I hear a lot from people who deal with migraines and headaches saying things like, oh, I had a migraine coming on, and then I'll go into Yoga Nidra, and it can sometimes sort of stop that in its tracks from moving forward. So that's interesting, not to say that that's something that happens every time for every person, but it's something that I hear about regularly, which is very interesting and kind of cool that it can help in some way. Another thing that I hear about regularly is people with panic attacks and different anxiety disorders, and that's something that I have a very long history with from age 11, moving through childhood and adolescence and into young adulthood, sort of these debilitating panic attacks where I would end up in the hospital. I also had asthma, so it would sort of, sometimes I would have a panic attack that would sort of spiral into a full-blown asthma attack where I couldn't breathe, and it was all very scary. But I hear regularly from people that are on the verge of a panic attack, and then they'll go to try to calm themselves down, and they'll put their headphones in and do some breathing is really important, I find, when people are in a state of sort of arousal or hypervigilance like that, to do some of those breathing exercises, which we often do at the beginning of a lot of my Yoga Nidra recordings. There's these different breathing techniques that will calm the nervous system down a little bit. So I always recommend to people that if you are someone who experiences high levels of anxiety or like an ongoing anxiety that you're trying to kind of rewire in your nervous system, that some of the breathing techniques on my channel and in the Yoga Nidras are super important to help bring the nervous system a little bit more into a parasympathetic state, and then the Yoga Nidra can take people even deeper into rest and relaxation, sometimes from a heightened state of like almost a panic attack or an anxiety attack. So just so you know, it can also go the other way. So if you go into a Yoga Nidra and it's making things worse with your panic attack or your anxiety attack, you can come back to regulating with the breath and sort of self-regulating with breathing techniques. And I have lots of those on my channel. And doing that first can often be helpful. And then once you're sort of a little bit more settled and calm, the Yoga Nidra can then sometimes take people even deeper into more of a state of feeling either neutral or even a state of peace sometimes. So that can be really helpful. And I hear from people a lot about that's really helping with their anxiety and helping them to shift from being in a state of sort of chronic anxiety over time to feeling a lot more a sense of balance from parasympathetic to sympathetic nervous system, and this ability to sort of go back and forth. Another thing I hear from people regularly about is how much Yoga Nidra can help people in cancer treatment. So people who are undergoing a cancer diagnosis and cancer treatments, that can be really hard on the system, super fatiguing, and that it can just completely drain people's energy. And Yoga Nidra has been proving to be very helpful for a lot of people who reach out to me. So I don't have any specific studies on that. I'm sure I could dig in and try to find some. I'm really nerdy like that. But it is something that I hear from people about regularly that say that it's really helping them. And there are lots of people that are undergoing cancer diagnosis and cancer treatments that are practicing Yoga Nidra daily or several times a day and saying that that's really helping them a lot. Okay, another thing I hear from people about is people who are not neurotypical. So whether that be like autism spectrum condition or other things, I hear from people who are saying, you know, this is really helping me and helping me to sort of self-regulate a little bit, find moments of stillness and inner peace and different things like that. So that's really great to hear about, and I'm interested to learn more about that too. I'm probably going to look for some research to see if there's anything about that. But again, Yoga Nidra is a form of meditation. Although there are many differences, there are also many similarities and techniques that are the same. So a lot of these studies that are coming out about meditation being helpful for different conditions is also Yoga Nidra is going to help in a similar way. Another thing I hear from, or another sort of population or group of people that I hear from that Yoga Nidra is really helpful for is single parents. So I have single moms that reach out to me regularly, and specifically lots of moms who reach out to me that have children with panic attacks or anxiety disorders, or have trouble getting to sleep or don't sleep very well. And it can be really hard for them to relax at bedtime, and it can be really hard for a single parent with multiple children to, get this one to bed and then get that one to bed, and this one over here is, heightening into anxiety or going into thoughts that are going to make it hard for them to get to sleep, or those type of things. I have lots of moms who say, I'll get an iPad or an iPod and give them some headphones and put a Yoga Nidra on for them. And I actually have some that are specifically for children. I have one on my channel that I can link to. So I'll post that in the cards and in the comments below. But this is a really helpful thing for a lot of parents, especially single parents, who are struggling to manage the whole bedtime routine, especially if there's a child that is struggling with that bedtime routine, or struggling to get to sleep, or having anxiety and thoughts come up around different things that they're stressed out about, or that type of thing at bedtime. So Yoga Nidra can kind of help them to not only to turn their mind off, but to generate some feelings of peace even maybe, and well-being, and then sort of drift off to sleep. So that's a great one to know about if you know anybody that's in a situation where they're having a child that's struggling. Okay, so what else can I talk about? I talked about long COVID, concussion recovery, women in perimenopause and menopause. I hear from women a lot, very regularly, about these type of challenges that they have around sleep or energy, feeling low energy, different things like that. And Yoga Nidra has proven to be really helpful for a lot of these women. So I hear from women about that type of thing all the time, as well as women who are experiencing challenging menstruation or moon times, where there's fatigue or symptoms that come up, or pain, different things like that. It can be really helpful to practice Yoga Nidra, to rest really, really deeply in that time where our body's actually working pretty hard in that phase. So it's really good to take some time to rest deeply and do less, and kind of clear some things from the calendar. We actually talk a lot about this in our Moon to Moon restorative teacher training, around how to carve out some times of rest during the new moon or during the menstrual phase for women. Okay, another thing around womanhood is pregnancy and postpartum. So a lot of women who are in pregnancy, they can struggle to get enough rest. There can be extreme fatigue during some of the trimesters or all the way through, challenges with eating or being sick, as well as many of you know all of the different types of challenges that can arise with pregnancy. So Yoga Nidra can help, and it can help with pregnancy insomnia as well. There are a lot of women who have a really hard time sleeping in the first trimester or the third trimester. So that can be really helpful for that. As well as, of course, postpartum, when the new babe is here and waking up two to three times a night, or potentially every 1 to 2 to 3 hours all through the night, being able to practice Yoga Nidra or use Yoga Nidra as a therapeutic approach, a chikitsa, to help get to sleep. This can be really, really helpful for postpartum mothers. and postpartum fathers who are getting woken up in the middle of the night as well. I also hear lots from people who have, of course, insomnia. So that's a pretty common one, and that kind of speaks for itself. I hear from people who have chronic fatigue syndrome pretty regularly, people who have, sleep disorders, people who struggle with self-acceptance. This is a really big one, actually, that I hear from people quite frequently, that they are developing a self-love and a self-acceptance somehow magically through the process of Yoga Nidra. And this is actually a big part of Yoga Nidra. So a lot of people saying that it's just sort of spontaneously arising as a spontaneous sankalpa that's sort of arising from their heart and things like that, which is really, really beautiful. Another thing that I'll just mention quickly, which we talk a lot more about in the training as well, is workout recovery. And I hear from people very regularly about this. Practicing Yoga Nidra after a workout or doing something strenuous to help their body recover. And another one, which is very, very cool, which is enhanced learning. So going into those deep states of rest, we talk about this one a lot in the training, that deep state of rest is sort of where the wiring takes place. When you hear about neuroscientists who talk about the firing and wiring, right? When we're creating new neural pathways in the nervous system, in the brain, there's this firing and wiring that happens. So the firing is happening when you're in that sort of alert state where you're doing the thing or learning the thing or practicing the new skill. And then the actual wiring, if you will, takes place when we're in a deep, deep state of delta sleep or in a state of Yoga Nidra. One of the cool things about Yoga Nidra is that we're actually taking that focused state, that alpha brainwave state of the meditative mind state, and combining it with delta, which is a deep state of sleep. And that's a unique state of consciousness that is only found in Yoga Nidra. So there's alpha brainwaves present and delta brainwaves present, the deep sleep delta brainwaves present simultaneously. So you're kind of taking, in a way, that firing and wiring and merging them in time simultaneously in the same moment when you're in a state of Yoga Nidra, which is something that we also dive into a lot in the training, is this idea of the state of Yoga Nidra versus sort of the process or the sequential journey that is a guided Yoga Nidra that is meant to take us into that deep state of rest, that conscious state of rest. Okay, so I hope that this video was helpful. I hope that you found something interesting. You might have a friend who's dealing with one of the issues that we are talking about in this video. You might have something to add in the comments below, a way that Yoga Nidra has helped your life. You might say, hey, that's me. I am a single parent and I am excited to try that with my kid, or whatever is coming up for you, I'd love to hear from you. If you're in the training, I'd love to hear from you a couple of things that you're taking away from this video. And you might actually scroll through the comments and see what are some of the other people here in the community saying about how Yoga Nidra is enhancing their lives. Because you, as a new Yoga Nidra teacher going out into the world, it's good to know some of these things that it can be helpful for. Okay. So I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you're interested in learning more about Yoga Nidra or my Yoga Nidra training, of course I'll post links below, and I'll post a couple of Yoga Nidras here at the end as well. I hope that you have a lovely day. I can't wait to hear from you, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Namaste.